I worked with this coach, and the school did not like it.
Really?
And I got kicked out.
Really?
Well, I'll say flunked out.
So how was it getting involved in the Holdovers, working with Alexander Payne?
It's not that eventful, unfortunately. Okay. And I found this out the other day when we were doing a press screener thing. Apparently he had me in mind initially. I didn't know of him. Not like we had a prior relationship.
Right.
And then, studio industry was like, let's find 30 actresses with bigger names.
Mm-hmm.
And so he did his due diligence and went through all of them. And then he was like, okay, so I did it. So now can I call her?
Right.
It was actually around this time of year, 2 years ago, and he gave me a call and was telling me about this project. And he then sent me the script, and then we had a follow-up meeting.
Yeah.
And I think we maybe read a scene together.
Yeah.
And then he was like, I'm cool if you're cool. And I was like, I'm cool. Just make sure that I get to cook the food for real. That was like my deal breaker that
really?
Yeah, that's important to me.
Yeah.
I need stuff to do. I need to be working with my hands. I always feel like sometimes it bothers me that I feel like sometimes actors from like their shoulders down are dead. You know what I mean? Like in regards to their limbs, their hands.
Yeah.
It's either super overactive.
Yeah.
Or we just don't do anything with our hands. So in particular, if I'm playing someone that's with their hands, let's do it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So did you make the food?
Yeah, so I made the food. So like we came up with the menu of what I wanted to cook, and then the prop people worked on the Julia Child series. And so they're like amazing chefs, and I love to cook. So we were just like geeking out and preparing things, and so like we're really chopping everything. So I think in the course of the entire movie, I make oatmeal, a soup, I prep for like, garlic, onions, like a Mary Pois and herbs, and then like a roasted chicken. And that
looked good.
It was good.
Yeah, it looked really good.
It looked really good.
You really made that.
Really made it. Okay. And then what we did was that day that we knew we were going to have that scene and like be constantly eating, we were like, we're not going to do dinner, craft services or whatever.
Nice.
And so we really sat down and had dinner, which was really weird, but really amazing.
Yeah.
Because we always just go to our trailers.
Yeah.
So the idea of like, we literally sat down and like had a meal together in character on set.
Yeah, it's great.
It was wild.
That's nice.
I love that.
Yeah. Is that a theater thing? I mean, is that where that comes from for you to be doing that?
Maybe so.
Okay.
Maybe so, because with theater, I need all the sensory things as soon and as early as I can have it.
Right.
Because I don't want the prop to upstage me or, you know what I mean, if it's a prop, or like the clothes to wear me.
Yeah.
Or I need to, and also it's an access way for me to get into the character.
Yes.
I worked with Ruth Carter on a project before, and she's a phenomenal costume designer. And she really, I kind of felt this way before, but I felt like as I was growing in my career, I felt like I wasn't quite there yet to ask of those things to be done. So I just, in the, in the silence of myself, did it behind the scenes. And when I met her, she was like, no, lean in.
Yeah.
This is what I've made a living off of. And she would like stitch little things in our pockets or just little nuanced things. It's almost like a very well-dressed set where you're just like, oh, I have all this stuff at my disposal. It's an amazing gift.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about, in terms of Yale. So you went to Yale, and you went there, and I read you weren't sure, you were kind of not totally sure you wanted to act or whether that was for you, is that right?
I started off with singing. That was my thing. And then off of a dare, I'm a little competitive, off of a dare in high school, because this new girl came and she was like, I went to Interlochen. It's like this performing arts school. And I was like, oh, no. I got to go figure out what this thing is.
Yeah.
And so I applied and come to find out it was a classically trained arts program, but classically based.
Yes.
And so I was like, what?
Yeah,
and so it was like all this opera stuff. And I was like, ew, I don't want to do this. But then I remember a teacher being like, well, you get to travel the world. People give you all this amazing food for free. And will fawn over you. Like I was like, gowns. And I was like, yeah, we can make this work. And so I'm a classically trained opera singer.
Wow.
I found that this happened a lot in my life. It's kind of like blissful naivete.
Yes.
In a way, and I think it's actually been a superpower.
Yes.
In many senses, because that was the case for Alexander.
Right. When you didn't know who he was.
I'll say this. I knew of his movies, but I did not know the connection that was the guy.
Right.
So in the meeting, I was like, because it's important to me, especially with, I don't know, like as we ascend, I have a love-hate with offers. Because with an audition, I feel like, especially if I'm not the lead, that is my only true intimate one-on-one time, right? With the director, where I get to really kind of dig in and have a real understanding of what they are expecting of me, and I get to try it out.
You know you earned it. You know that they saw it. They know that it's right. They know that you had that. Yeah, exactly.
And so I had asked him, I was like, well, because it was kind of like, yeah, you have. And I said, well, I want to know, like, tell me some of your projects so I can look it up. And he was very humble. He was like, no, it's okay. You don't have to look anything up. And I was like, no, it's important to me. I need to know your style, your dynamic, and to see how I fit in, especially when people are like, oh, based off of this other thing you did, I think you're perfect for it. And it's like, okay, well, that's your interpretation. I need to see what you do so I can understand how you put that together.
Totally.
Do you know what I mean? Because I think people have a perception of what we think we do. So for him, he said it was Dolomite.
Okay. Got it.
I don't know. I still don't know where that connection is. Because only I say that because he was very confident of like, oh yeah, that I can figure out a way to get to that.
Right.
And so I had to see his stuff to figure out,
Yeah. And when you saw it, how did that help you figure out what you were going to do, or what did you learn from that?
Nothing, if I'm honest. No, because I still don't. I don't get the correlation, but I think if nothing else, right? Because when people are, of having written and directed your own stuff, there's such an intimacy of what you have in your mind, of what you project it to be. So it was more important for me to understand how he wanted this woman to navigate through space.
And are you having conversations with him about that? Are you coming in with it? Is there a lot of talk around that?
A lot of talk.
And what was that? I
think a lot of it. So we had a 2 to 3 week
fantastic
prep session.
Thank God. It makes all the difference in the world. Yeah, great.
Yeah, so we had this 2 to 3 week prep session, and people asked a lot about the movie, like, oh, is it improvised?
Right.
And I always say yes and no, being that like, yes, it was, but in that prep time. So we had table reads, you know what I mean? So it was kind of like, collectively, we are all here. And we're going to read through this several times. And anything at any point that doesn't feel genuine, or you want to change or add on, now's the time to do it. And now the story is then locked. Right? And then that's what we've all agreed upon, which I love, because usually it's, the director has that conversation with that actor, that one, that one. But it was a collective.
Totally.
And we were all on the same page in that regard. He said you were a real asshole.
Well, like I said, sharp kid, insightful.
When you got the script for Fair Play, what were you thinking? Firstly, as an actor, and then secondly, as a man.
I think that when I first read it, it was what was appealing about it was the fact that it was this huge role. There was so much to do.
So much.
And that it was, but the thing that I really responded the most to, because my favorite experiences in my life basically are working for writer-directors mostly. When somebody's making something, they're the filmmaker, it's in their heart. It's coming from a place in them that's really deep. And what I felt with her was that this was, you can kind of feel it in your bones that this is a story that's coming out of her real feelings, her emotions, who she is, and things she experienced. And you just know that when you read something. And sometimes that thing that's deep that they're that's deep is the humor, is that they love how funny the thing is. And sometimes it's, in this case, like a lot of intensity and a lot of what felt like a lot of unresolved sort of feelings that she was talking about. And I liked that. It made it feel messy. It made it feel interesting. And then I had a conversation with her, and she was, you know, it's a first-time director. You never know with a first-time
She's a first-time director?
Yeah. I mean, she'd done a lot of TV, but it was like she did Billions, I think, and Ballers and things that are completely different than this.
But that I get it at the same time. The getting in that inlaying that tension.
That
underplay, that undercurrent.
These worlds that are really intense. And so she wanted to, I think really, I mean, the movie's really her talking about her experiences in show business, you know, and she sets it in the...
I love that you said that.
Yeah, I mean, it's that, you know.
I was triggered.
Oh, yeah.
But I was triggered as an actor.
Yeah, really? Yeah,
I was triggered as an actor. There was things and themes that were coming up.
Yeah.
And I actually felt this about your short as well, that triggered me as the life of an actor.
Yeah.
And the deep, like I've watched Billions, I've seen, and I'm just in that world, and I'm like, oh, that world's over there, and I'm over here.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so fascinating you say that.
Yeah.
Because things about it, I was thinking, I was like, oh my gosh, this weird thing of gender play, and you would think it wouldn't be a thing in acting.
Right.
But sometimes it very, very much so is, or like the checks and balances, or like, have you ever been in a relationship with another actor?
Yeah, mostly.
For obvious
reasons. To avoid it, yeah.
Right. I feel like we all are, but there's a convenience to it.
There is,
because this is a wild world that only very few people are going to put up with us.
Totally.
In that regard.
It's true. And your life is weird, and you have a certain kind of buzz. You know, when actors meet each other, they recognize another kind of, oh, you have that thing. I really think it's a little bit of a born thing.
Yeah.
You have that sort of wanting to people to see you and stuff. But there is like this other story with the movie that I think is, like in my experience when I've dated actors or when you know, just living this life, where when people are focusing on one thing that is not, when people are focusing on something that is, I want to say, like low frequency, like it's, you know, it's people focusing on something where they're going to get ahead, or it's an industry, or it's their job, and that's what they're thinking about and talking about and living and breathing constantly. It almost becomes a religion, and you're kind of praying to like a false god, and and so when you're one of the things that I think leads to the terrible things that happen in the movie is the fact that the hours these people are asked to work are so
100%.
inhumane. And that's across the board. That's everywhere. You know, you're seeing that with the labor disputes we just kind of are living through, is like people being asked to function or being afraid to say no to working for a certain amount of time, and having their jobs take over their lives. And if you're also, that's your home life also, it sort of drives you crazy. There's no break. And then you start thinking about yourself all the time, because you are this piece in this thing, and you're almost like I feel, you know, it's interesting coming back into press and doing press for the first time in a long time. I kind of forgot the avatar version of myself that I'm in charge of sort of taking care of in this environment, in all like I'm here and I'm selling myself. And so that is a job in and of itself. And you, when the mask and the real face sort of get mixed up sometimes, it's very strange, you know, psychologically.
For me, it was my first, you know how usually you'll do a press junket and then start getting into like talk shows and stuff. And though press junkets are intense, in a way, it's kind of like the perfect storm, because it's great training, right? You've got your script now. You've had all these interviews that now you know this is my soundbite.
Exactly, right.
For whatever reason, probably because of the strike, I ended up doing a talk show first.
Yeah.
And when I sat down, I was like, I hadn't, you know what I mean?
You didn't have the speech.
I literally sat down and I said, oh, strike is over. We're back. And you're exactly right. I didn't have the avatar, as you say. I didn't have it with me, and it was just talking to me like we were at the house kicking it on the
right, exactly. Which is probably better. That's good. That's probably better.
We'll see when it comes out. I don't know, but I just was like, ooh.
Right. Well, I think that can be its own trap too, because you get like off the cuff, and then people respond well to that, and then you start doing a version of off the cuff that people are, you know what I mean? It's like a weird, yeah. I felt yesterday we did a press thing, and I was like, I forgot what smile to do. You know, I was like, shit, I got like my face was smiling. I was like, oh, right, what is this? You know, so it's interesting. You know, it's very interesting. But yeah, with the film, I think the thing that happens with these two people is just, you know, there's nothing, you see nothing in the film where either of these people are relating to anything bigger than themselves and their own sort of egos, and then the only outlet they have is on their love relationships, which I feel like is also a thing that happens. We're all just working, and then whoever your partner is has to take that kind of weight, and so it drives them crazy. But when I read it, I just felt I felt that Chloe was talking about something that was very personal and very deep, and that was sort of thrilling about it. Yeah.
And how then, your co-star, had you known her before?
No, I met her for this, and like when you were talking about the rehearsal and the prep and being together, that's everything to me. I mean, that's a huge deal. When I did my first movie, we did a month of rehearsal, and we did improv games. I was 18.
My God.
I was right out of high school, and it was a Francis Ford Coppola movie, and he did like a month where we were just having dinners together as a cast.
Yeah.
Doing, you know, parties where we were in character, like a costume party. You know,
that's really cool.
It was so by the time you get to set, it's not the firing squad. You know, you are an ensemble, and you're together, and you're doing it, and everybody else comes and has to watch that. It's almost like this. The more we are having this conversation, the more comfortable I am, and it's us, as opposed to we're here in the, you know.
Right,
so in terms of the film, it just was so beautiful to like, Chloe made that happen with me and Phoebe. We did improvisations. Well, we talked when I first met her about what the process was going to be, and I was saying I love improv where you're improvising, probably similar to what you guys did. When you're in rehearsal with Alexander Payne, you're improvising scenes as in character. Is that what it is, or what?
No, for us it was, we were literally reading.
Yeah, you're reading the script.
And then if things came up, like it was like, forever hold your peace, say it now.
Right.
Right. And then that's when we offered something, then it was kind of like, okay, now let's dig in and see what that would look like.
Right.
But it was still very much so table read, seated. It wasn't like on its feet.
Right.
Trying something. It was like more of a scholastic approach.
Right. Yeah. We did improvisations where I was taking Phoebe's character through the office and showing her where her desk was, and then we did the first time that we said I love you to each other in bed, and it was like it made this like nice thing where we felt like an ensemble and we felt connected in that way. And then with the amount of intense material we had to take on, it like helped us feel.
So, and how did you, because right, when you have these kind of projects where where I feel like it's similar for both of us, you know, at a certain point, this is going to get intense, we'll say, for the lack of a better word. And for you, you knew you had a partner to bounce this off of, and that you had to give this to. So how did you guys go about that? And at the same while, you seem like a very lovely man, taking care of one another.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like fully giving into it.
Yes.
Because I could see in your face,
yeah,
you as the character, you meant it.
Yeah.
But how do you then, you know what I mean? How did you guys approach that?
I think it's the front end. It's making sure that all the terms are kind of clear before you go into it, and that you really connect. We had an intimacy coordinator, and that time was invaluable. And then just really kind of checking in, talking about it, and making sure we're on the same page. Because if there had been, and we've both had this experience, I'm sure, where there are sort of real tensions where you're not on the same team with people you're working with, or there's a competitiveness, or there's kind of a resentment or anything. If that had been going on with that kind of material, it couldn't happen. So I was very lucky that Chloe set that tone and created that world and stuff.
So you've had a hell of a year. What is that like? Cocaine Bear, Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Then you did this right after that?
I did Cocaine Bear and then Fair Play and then Oppenheimer and then the short and then the Marvel series right after that. Yeah.
How much of a break were you having in between?
I don't know. No, I don't not much. Not much.
What is that like? How was that?
I'd never done that, you know.
Yeah, you were on a roll.
I'd never done like back to back to back, but I hadn't done anything because I didn't work during COVID basically. I was like,
okay.
And well, it was still COVID, but I went back and I did a movie and I just was like, I felt good and I felt warmed up, but I was like, I'm gonna get out there and I'm gonna do these. And then it just kind of piled up, which I'd never experienced like that. But you've been living that for the last few years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how is that for you?
I feel like I have to, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to keep the momentum going.
Uh-huh.
This one is now interesting, right? Because now, I mean, I've worked with great directors, but a acclaimed director like Alexander, I'm very curious of what this next step or phase will be for me, being that, do you know what I mean? When you work, well, I mean, you started with a harrowing great, but like your life shifts. Usually the process of your process as an actor doesn't shift. Your talent doesn't usually shift, but the awareness and all the other stuff around you shifts. So I'm interested to see what that's going to be, but I've noticed as I'm like bulldozing through, I'm also getting even more and more choosy and picky on what I do.
Right.
And I kind of have this little game with myself where I'll do the complete opposite of whatever I just finished doing.
Right.
So like there was a point where I was filming Netflix's Bayard Rustin, Coleman Domingo's play. Oh my God, he's so amazing. I'm literally playing Mahalia Jackson, which is like basically like the Black Mother Teresa, right? And I get a call from my agents and they're like, hey, listen, so there's a new Paramount movie called On the Come Up. And you would basically be a butch, masculine chick who's slinging drugs and teaching her niece how to like survive on the streets, you know what I mean, the urban streets.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is she, like, what do you mean, like, how masculine? She was like, oh, like, she dresses like a dude. And so I remember literally just on the phone in the chair, and I'm looking at myself in the mirror of what I look like as this church lady.
Right.
And that kind of stuff, I don't know why, it just gets me like, this is the one to go to next. It couldn't have been more polar opposite. Because for me, I feel like, and I don't know if it's due to like having had the training, but for me, those stretches are ways in which I can ground myself. And
the
keep
stretches of
like going from one extreme to the next.
Right.
Like, you know, we do something successful and then they're like, great, magically 10 movies or projects of the role
you're playing the
literal role that you just did pops up. And I always am like, no. And so for me, it's part of me keeping the instrument fresh that I try to go somewhere completely different. I never want to get comfortable.
I feel like it's too soon. Like Curtis will think that I'm abandoning him, you know? This is the last place that my baby and I were together.
I want to ask you about your prep for this part, though. You know, it's so beautiful.
Thank you.
It's really, really moving, really beautiful performance. You know, you said something somewhere that I read of like getting offered parts where you don't know anything about the person. And I was wondering what this was like, what this experience was like, and then also how you prepped for it and how you brought this, because we meet this person after the most tragic thing in her life has happened.
Right. I think from the first initial conversation with Alexander, I understood, you know, especially with theater background, I was like, oh, this is going to be theater friendly, right? This is going to be a type of director that really wants to dig in. So immediately, I took more of the theatrical approach in regards to like the training, right?
Right.
So I remember saying to them, hey, listen, so can you please put in the budget for a dialect coach? I would love to. And they were like, you know, I'm not saying it was a financial thing, but they were just like, no, you know, you're from Philadelphia. You've lived a lot of years in New York. Like, Northeast in general will be great.
Right.
No.
Right.
No.
Yeah, no.
So much so that I came out of pocket for it myself. But I don't care. Do you know what I mean? To me, I'm like, that's an investment.
Absolutely.
And so I worked with this amazing dialect coach. I guess he's primarily works with Nicole Kidman. His name is Tom Jones. And I had such an amazing experience with him because we literally found a late 1960s, early 1970s Black dialect.
Wow.
For Boston. So it's like we took archiving. So you're getting family videos, you're getting, you know, when people get like interviewed in the news, like, so what happened?
Yeah.
And they're like, you know, locals just talking, or a lot of times it was like politicians or stuff like that. Like, you just have to dig. You really have to dig.
Yeah.
And I love stuff like that.
So.
We, out of like a compilation of audio files, we came up with this dialect, this sound.
Right.
And so we did that.
It's really beautiful in the movie. You really can hear it.
Thank
you. You really hear like it's really like the first time you spoke, it really tells, you feel the character in a really
Thank you. I really
way.
appreciate that. And it was actually really hard because we filmed it in Boston. So I had crew talking like 2022 Boston dialects, and I had to be I had to like go away because it was a little too close, and it would easily throw me off. Because it's like there's a difference, but it was a very close difference.
Yeah.
So there was that. There was, when I got the job, Alexander shipped me 2 big boxes of carton full of cigarettes.
Okay.
Because I don't say, I'm a singer, I don't smoke. And so he like wrote a note and was like, get to it. And it's true. I mean, listen, I love old movies, and I feel like Betty Davis is one of like the smoking. You know, she's got like the art of smoking down to a science. I don't think people realize whether you are a smoker or not, to be smoking and acting is a whole nother thing. So it was like I had 2 parts. I had to learn how to smoke and make it look realistic, and then have the practical aspect of smoking while acting. So you're dealing with the smoke coming in your face and making you tear, or dragging it at an inopportune time. It almost was like I had to create a rhythm of where it was like I needed it. And at the same time,
where you mean when you were going to take it?
When I was going to take it. Am I going to hold it in, talk like this a little bit as I'm still talking, or do I blow it out? And then, but what it then allowed me to do is I then charted it of like, oh, okay, she's really stressed right now. We're definitely going to be puffing and smoking and talking while I'm exhaling, because I can't have my own breath be my own. I need that nicotine to accompany me. So I have a little bit more courage to do it. So it was the cigarettes, it was the dialect, the clothing I asked for like swatches of the fabric, because I wanted, being that she was this like maternal matriarch, I needed people to feel like they either wanted to touch her or hug her or like cozy up next to her. So the textiles.
Oh, wow.
I wanted it to be like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, like when someone wears a fuzzy sweater or something, you're like, I gotta just touch it. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And so I needed the textiles to be that way, or like the hair, I had it based in a very set thing off of, I always like to, as a woman of color, I love to always give homage to the people before me. I'm really big into like my ancestors and elders in the industry in particular who have paved the way. So I always leave these subliminal little nuggets and gems. And it could be like a hairstyle or like a gesture or something that I lay in there.
You want me to take you home?
You got a chance to work with Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
How was that? And
Terrible.
at any point did you let him know, like, hey, I'm gonna be doing Marvel stuff too?
Yeah, I worked with him right before all that happened, and you know, I was expecting, I was very ready to have him be, you know, he's an enormous star, kind of come in and leave and do his thing and have a good thing. But you know, I've had great experiences with people, but it's in and out. And it was completely the opposite. You know, we were like, he wanted to talk about the scenes, he wanted to get dinner, we went on a road trip. You know, it became this real friendship, and he's just the nicest. You know, the most available, most generous, huge star I've ever worked with by far.
Wow.
And he really does an amazing job of kind of making his life, like his attention, where he's at in his life on a regular basis is about making other people feel good. And that seems, he hasn't said this to me, but it seems like that's his way of navigating what is, I can't imagine the kind of ego complexities of being that famous.
Yeah.
And so it seems like his way of doing that is to make it about the other person, is to care, is to find a good way of making other people feel good and using that for that. And so it's very, very beautiful. And you know, lots of people do great philanthropic work, but this is moment to moment, person to person.
Yeah, this is his life mission.
Exactly. And he's never at a dinner trying to get you to think a certain thing about him in that way, in my experience. He's not selling himself or doing that thing that, you know, and protecting or whatever. So, and then when I got the Marvel thing, I called him to be like, is there like a reason, you know, tell me if I shouldn't do this or something.
Yeah.
And he said he had goosebumps. I mean, it was very, very encouraging of it. So it was really beautiful,
I'm easy to blame for what happened to Robert.
We can't have the Senate thinking the scientific community doesn't support you, sir.
So what was The Idol? What was that experience like for you?
The Idol, I was approached by, I had just got new agents.
Okay.
And maybe a week in, they were like, you know, in the beginning, they're really like, oh, we got this, we could get you this and this and this. And so the first week, they were like, Sam Levinson wants you to do a project with him.
Yeah.
And there was something, I hadn't watched all of Euphoria, but there was something about him that I was like, I feel like he is, I just have a sixth sense that he is an actor's director.
Yeah.
And that, you know, sometimes those things you crave, or when you read a script, sometimes you're like, it was so close. Like when you're in that last page, you're like, but you fell short. And I always have to negotiate. Is that something that I can bring to the table? Is that something truly the director or said studio is going to be willing to do and compromise or add on?
Right.
Or is this really what this is going to be?
Yeah.
And with him, I just had a feeling that I was like, oh, he'll let me like really like run amok in the really best, you know what I mean? And like go there, whatever that meant.
Yeah.
And so at the time, there wasn't a script. I never do this. There was no script. He was explaining it to me, the premise. I was into it because it was different. Again, that polar opposite.
Yes.
It was basically going to be exploring the life of essentially like a Disney teen actress, trying to make that transition into like adulthood, and what that's like, and that I would be portraying her manager.
Okay.
But there was no physical script, and I was like, okay, I like the idea that this will put, because at that time was another time in which I was really like knocking them down, the jobs.
Yes.
It was starting to feel a little 9 to 5-ish.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, and now you're going here. And now
Yes.
And I was like, this will be something that can shake things up.
Right.
I didn't know how much it was going to shake things up. Being that my process, and I say this because it almost feels like it's scandalous, but part of me thinks it honestly is because we had a very famous pop singer, artist, The Weeknd, in the project. And I say that to say, I feel like if I did a TV show with Michael Jackson, it was the same thing. You know what I mean? It's just, it lends itself to that.
Right.
But what I respected about Abel, AKA The Weeknd, was that for someone who is so good at one thing, and knows that performance persona and that entity so well.
Yeah.
I had so much respect for him that he was willing to go out on a limb, so to speak, and be like, I want to try something new.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether I come back to it later, I'm not making this proclamation like I'm leaving the industry. But I really respected that about him.
Absolutely.
And so when I came to the equation, there was already like a version 1 that was done. I didn't know anything about this. All they told me was like, the first version, we didn't really love it. It started taking a different direction, creative differences. We hear this all the time.
Yep.
We're going to fix it, and we would like you to be involved in this version. Great. Us filming it, awesome. He let me improv so much.
Great.
It was one of the more collaborative experiences where it literally felt like hand in hand, he and I were creating this character together.
It's great.
Which is right. Yeah. I felt that never happens.
Yeah.
And so we film it. It's in the can. And right before it gets released, a Rolling Stones article comes out.
Okay, I don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So a Rolling Stones article comes out and basically is like exposing, I guess, like what they think was going on set, why, like a theory as to why there was a different version, just like rumor mill type fodder.
Right.
And why it was, I've never experienced anything like that before, in which the timing couldn't have been better because it caused such.
Oh, it was good.
No.
Oh, okay.
It was
bad.
well, no, it was like there was another version.
Right.
It was a female showrunner. Like they were kind of trying to build this case like 2 weeks before it came out. And the industry is so interesting. And now with this combination of like social media, it's like those things can get in the way from the work. And now with this like cancel culture and all of this stuff, it's very tricky.
Yeah.
I'm a type of person, I just care about the work.
Yeah.
And so the catch-22 is, I'm actually very proud of this character that I created.
Yeah.
But due to everything else that is not in my control, it kind of like just slowly disappeared. Now, mind you, everyone watched it. Because, that's how it is.
Yes.
Everyone watches it to then say their feelings about it.
Yes.
The numbers were up.
Yes.
But I guess I don't know. I don't get included in all these conversations.
Right.
But it was a reality check for me that I was just like, there is this other element.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we take a gamble every time, right? When we say yes to a job, we don't know. We don't know the different factors. But the solace that I guess I hold on to is that I'm very proud of what I created.
Yes.
And the beautiful thing in the midst of all of that was that my contribution to the project was able to pierce through. And I say that in a very, I don't know if I'm naive in regards to this industry, but it was very wholesome. It made me proud that I was like, okay, talent can. Not saying the other people weren't talented, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when the work is done, it was able to pierce through all that other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
It made it complicated where I then felt like I couldn't like, in any other situation, I would have told my publicist, I want to do a full award show. Let's do the whole campaign. But because of what happened, I feel like ever since it's come out, I've just been trying to explain myself of something that I had nothing to do with. You know what I mean? And it's so scandalous and everybody wants to know.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's the part that's the bummer, but I just hold on to, listen, we did the work. We'll continue to do the work. I feel the same thing with like award season.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We'd be like, oh my God, what do you think? How are you feeling? And you're like, I just keep doing the work.
Totally.
How you guys feel is totally subjective.
Yep.
I'm grateful.
Yep.
If nothing else, it allows me to keep going because I'm going to still tell the stories.
Absolutely.
irregardless.
Absolutely.
And I don't focus on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That other stuff gets in the way.
No, you have to build a kind of a psychological firewall against and if in a way it's a blessing to be able to be put into a situation where you have to get really sharp with the tool called managing what you feel about how other people think about what you're doing or what you're a part of. I mean, it's
Do you read reviews?
No, but kind of.
Got it.
I mean,
like, do you read it after?
I'll read it way down the line.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll look and I'll kind of take like a general thing, but it's not
like
a good
watch.
Like, let me see what the vibe was. But I've never gotten any good. Nothing good has ever come from that. You know what I mean? And now, with the way the internet is, it's so much a part of our lives that it's much hard. It's not a newspaper that you choose not to pick up or not to subscribe to. It's everywhere, and everybody around you is expecting that you did. And I really worry about young actors and kids. I really worry about kids who are teenagers who are in acting school who, like, I can't imagine when I was in theater school if I was also kind of worrying about my social media following or whatever, like the blend of all those things. And I just hope, I think that still probably is, but I just hope that people are, you know, doing what you're describing and really dedicating themselves to that craft sort of in the face of whatever happens. And really
it takes a lot of work though. It's like recon, you know what I mean? Like, I'm telling don't tell me.
Yeah, right.
I tell my team, everyone on the team,
anything.
I don't want to know.
Yeah, exactly.
When glam comes, you're gonna meet new people. Someone like my little NDA writer.
Right.
Do not tell me what you heard about what I'm involved in.